everyone. It's been a hot minute. We're back behind the couch. I'm Dr. Shiloh. And who are you, sir?
Hey, I'm Dr. Scott. Welcome back. It's been 2 months?
Yeah, since November.
Yeah. I know this is off-putting because we used to do it 2 times a month. Not saying that we need to be doing any more work.
No.
We're exhausted. But
that was off-putting.
No. Do that.
Don't do that. Please don't make it stop. We're not your slaves. We're not being able to do this. But we are very much at the service of our Patreon members. Thank you. God, you guys have been amazing lately. Thank you so much. Scott, do you want to do our new member shout outs and then maybe we can say who upgraded too?
Yes. And I'll probably have to keep saying this every time, but I'll come out of the closet again and say,
again,
I'm actually on YouTube with everybody in the chat as Metal Tiger, because that's my username for one of my Gmail accounts, and which makes it really funny when we use DoorDash because people are like yelling out. Our ringer doesn't work anymore, so people are out there, Metal Tiger, Metal Tiger, because I was born in Year of the Tiger under the sign of metal. So there you go.
You don't have to explain it. We can make our own interpretations.
I kind of do. And welcome to Year of the Rabbit, everyone.
Metal Tiger, I'll be right down. It's me. Oh my God.
So I had my whole script up. Hold on. Where's my script? Hold on. Okay, here we are.
Let's do it.
Patron shout outs, Patreons, new members. We have Candy B, Bex M, Danny with an I, Cindy R, Amy G, Danielle L, Megan T. And then we had so many people upgrade, which was just so cool. I gotta stop saying amazing. I gotta find other words besides amazing, but I think you're all amazing. At our intern level, we have Alex S, Angle T, Shannon N, Bridget Y, Jen Y, Emily F, Melissa C, Alexis F, Elizabeth L, Cindy R, and Danielle L. And then at our doctoral level, welcome, Adrian R, Chris B, Tori V, Kaylin Z, Jessica W, Sarah D, Lori E, Catherine with an ERYN. I think I want to single that out. H, Hadriana A, Lauren, Shelby T, Angie R, and Megan T. So Megan is a new member and went right to doctoral level. Holy crap. We had several of those. Thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Well, that's because of you. That's because of you impressing the freak out of everybody by being on Surviving the Survivor. Seriously, great job.
Oh, thank you.
Great show. Great show, by the way.
Great show.
I am impressed by the level of guests that get on there, including you, clearly.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of subscribers after that. So if any of you are these Patreon members, thank you. We appreciate it. Also, it's my typo. It wasn't Angle T, it's Angie T. But it's very literal.
But you know what?
Thank you, Scott.
But everybody, yes, but you never know with names. So
I know
you can be our little Angle.
She's like old school, long time Patreon member, so she is not going to mind at all. And
she's our guardian Angle.
Oh my God. And then I just saw that Dr. Carnow, my chiropractor, he just upgraded as well. That just came through right before we went on. So
very cool.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other housekeeping before we get to our very exciting, fun guest today?
What else? Don't know. Let's see. Just we've had some really cool subjects for shows lately. I mean, and also that's with the new Discord channel and people popping on. We've got so many different channels running under our Discord account with great ideas and great discussions. And thank you all for contributing to that. That's helping us stay on top of some great ideas. We are being very careful because we promised ourselves we would be really good to ourselves this year and not overbook. And we're we're one booking away from really kind of tipping over. So we got to, but the big one, we've got a live event, and we also have CrimeCon UK, which is so cool, and can't wait to go.
So for sure, CrimeCon UK, which our guest Lisa today, she will be there as well.
Yes.
And we have committed to Parapod Festival in April here in Southern California.
Yes.
And then for sure, we have settled on a date, but we're not going to say anything yet. We are going to be doing our own live event in Los Angeles, likely in May. So that's three.
Three and three presenters. It'll be with our colleagues L.A. Meekley and Holly Weird Paranormal. I think it's a great idea. We'll cover the crime, the history, and the supposed supernatural rumors. And I couldn't think of working with a better group of people. They're all like the driest, most snarky people. They're perfect for us. So
perfect for us.
Absolutely.
Quickly, let's see. Emily said new tattoo, Shiloh. Is that something new? The last one I got was my LA Not So Confidential tattoo. So if you guys are on our Instagram, you might have seen it there. It might be on our TikTok. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yes, I finally did it. I figure we hit the 5-year mark of the podcast last October. So why not? All right.
I'm gonna have to start getting them to cover up the age spots. That's gonna be my thing.
Oh yeah, and I'm like, oh, my flabby arm looks really good covered in a sleeve of tattoos. This one, not so much. Oh my gosh. All right, let's get on with it because we're gonna have a lot of great conversation today. And you guys, we want your questions for Lisa, so make sure you put those in the chat.
Yes, please.
So I am going to let Lisa in our little room here as I read off her very lengthy bio that I cut down, and I hope she's okay with how I cut it down. Hi, Miss Lisa.
Hi. How are you guys?
Doing
good.
Very
Thank you so
well. Relax, have a sip of your Diet Dr. Pepper.
I've actually upgraded.
You did.
I've moved on to bourbon.
Excellent. Even better.
You're our kind of people.
Yeah.
Pour yourself a bourbon, and I'm going to tell our friends all about you.
Okay.
So Miss Lisa Ribacoff is the manager of International Investigative Group Limited Credibility Assessment Division. She currently serves on the board of directors for the American Polygraph Association and is president of the New York State Polygraph Examiners Association. Ms. Ribacoff is a graduate of the American Polygraph Association Accredited School, Academy for Scientific Investigative Training. Do you know how hard it is for me not to say American Psychological Association every single time? But
we actually call you guys the big APA. So we're the little APA. And like in board meetings, we're like, this is how the big APA does it.
Well, Lisa also holds a Bachelor of Science in Childhood Special Education from the State of New York University at Old Westbury. She's also a graduate of Concordia University and holds a dual Master of Science in Educational Leadership and Curriculum and Instruction. And she conducts testing for criminal accusations, employee theft, insurance fraud, family issues, abuse allegations, media, you name it, she does it. And Lisa has tested paroled sex offenders for the Rockland County Department of Probation, and that's in New York, correct?
Yep, that's here in New York.
Okay. She's also listed as a court certified expert for polygraph examinations and private investigations on the expert panel for the city of New York and both Nassau and Suffolk counties on Long Island. She has been awarded a contract with the city of Miami to provide pre-employment polygraph examinations to the Miami Police Department applicants. And Ms. Ribacoff is currently being featured on both Fuse Media's Lie Detector and Vanity Fair's Tell Me the Truth series, which shows her administering polygraph examinations to various celebrities in the entertainment industry. And I have to say, that's like my favorite thing to watch on TikTok is that series. I was like, oh my God, she's doing these? How did I not put 2 and 2 together? Because it's hilarious. It's great. So welcome. Hi.
Thanks for having me. I'm so glad we were able to finally get this on record because I think we'd spoken at CrimeCon in Vegas about doing this and full circle. So that's awesome.
I know. And where are you coming to tonight, or where are you from? Not from, where are you at tonight? Because I know you're traveling all over the place all the time.
Right now I'm actually in my house in on Long Island in New York.
Oh, okay.
I just came back from Vegas, I think less than 48 hours ago. I was teaching over at a Polygraph conference out there for a few days. So I've got a couple of days to be on the ground, and then I'm back on a plane on Monday morning.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You and I have many DMs about how much we love Delta. Maybe that's my next tattoo, ode to Delta, my airline of choice. Scott.
Sky miles are my love language.
I love it. I love it. I know. Oh my gosh. I'm reading a leadership book right now. And so they're talking about like, what about a company like Harley Davidson makes people want to tattoo it on their body? And it's such an interesting phenomenon. So I'm not quite there yet, but
not there either.
Yeah, I know. So Scott, I have a question for you first. I'm going to throw it to you. What has been your personal or professional experience with polygraph examinations?
So no personal, thank God. Because I would wilt like a wet paper bag if I was ever interrogated like that. No, it was my experience was with you, really, that the year of our internship working in South LA at a forensic site with I know at least two. Do we have more than two polygraph
examiners? That's a great question. Just after I moved on from there, I worked with so many. It would be hard for me to remember who we used.
I just remembered like the silver-haired guy that loved the Hawaiian shirts.
Yep.
And there was at least one woman. But all I remember is how terrified our clients would be. You know, like it's time to pony up and tell the truth.
Yeah.
And you know, they were sweating when they came in, even if they hadn't done anything, which was pretty good. But so the power of that is kind of amazing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would hold therapy sessions with them to prepare for them, not prepare and obviously like how to do, but just the anxiety that comes along with it. So for myself, obviously I have the same experience as Scott, and I swear polygraph examiners are on my list of some of the most hilarious and like quirkiest people I've ever worked with. The other person that's on that list are coroner investigators.
You guys have a relationship. Yeah.
Totally track. I just like it, just hilarious. And a mindset unlike anyone else's, I guess is a good way to put it. But also, you know, being in law enforcement, of course, I was on the other end for pre-employment type scenarios. So I've definitely felt a little bit of empathy in some way with some of my clients that had to go through it, although it was completely different types of examinations. So Lisa, I need to hear your origin story of how you ended up with this very impressive biography in your field.
So I actually have a very weird story. The firm now is actually a family-owned and operated business. It started off with my father opening up the private investigation firm, to which then turned into going to a polygraph academy, because when I graduated from undergrad, and as you mentioned, my degrees are actually in education. I spent, I think it's a total of 6 years teaching anywhere from pre-K to middle school, general ed and special ed. And when I graduated undergrad, there were no teaching jobs available. So my dad was like, yeah, you know what, just come work for me, no problem. So I was doing administrative assistant stuff. I was going on surveillances. I was running background checks. And this was like in my early 20s. So it was definitely the time of not to get involved in a relationship with anyone, because you do not want to date a girl in her 20s with access to everything at her fingertips.
Yep.
And what happened is that we were getting a lot of insurance cases pertaining to accusations of molestation and sex crimes in the Catholic Church. This is when things started happening. And it got to the point where my caseload from the insurance investigation side was so astronomical that I said, I need to figure out a tool or acquire a skill to reduce my caseload. And then at that point, the light bulb went off, and then I enrolled in the Polygraph Academy, received my degrees and my training, and pretty much hit the ground running. So instead of interviewing priests pertaining to their activities, I ended up polygraphing the priest. And that would probably be a really good title for a book of polygraphs and priests. But the Jew that I am, I'm going to kind of stay away from that.
That's
so,
hilarious. Wow.
Yeah, so that was about 12 years ago. And I've just been hitting the ground running ever since, testing everyone from infidelities, child abuse cases, doing media appearances, as you mentioned. And now there's an uptick in PSOT, which is what you guys are familiar with, the post-conviction sex offender testing, as well as just criminal investigations.
So you mean an uptick for you personally in your business, or just kind of in the field in general?
I would say both. Most of the time right now when I'm dealing with PSOT, the post-conviction sex offender testing, it's the instant offense, which is where the allegation was made and we need to go ahead and determine if you actually are the person that committed the crime, versus the maintenance and monitoring of being convicted. And now we need to make sure that you're adhering to the procedures that were set out in your parole.
Yeah. So in California, and let me know if this is different elsewhere, but when someone would come out of prison, come to the contracted psychological center where they were going to get assessment and treatment, they would all get that instant offense one, essentially like a baseline. It's going to help with our initial assessment of getting to know them. And then, like you said, the maintenance monitoring, it varied depending on contracts and how laws changed from, 2008 when Scott and I started to, just 5 years ago when I got out of that work full time. But, every quarter to every year depending on the person and their risk level. So I'm sure that keeps you quite busy because there's just a lot of agencies out there seeing those types of folks.
Yeah, there's an uptick amongst the agencies, and it's also coming down to people finally being held accountable for their actions, which is a big thing. And it also comes down to also the terms and conditions of the parole. How much do we want to make sure that we're not giving the offender an opportunity to reoffend? So as long as the parameters are in place, then we can go ahead and handle the maintenance and monitoring, as you mentioned, either quarterly, annually, or there are sometimes people even have to come every, I think like 6 months, or sometimes even every 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know it was always helpful for us, not so much that we were just like looking as if they were reoffending in that particular type of crime, but when we're assessing risk level psychologically and just kind of behaviorally, looking at all the other things that have been problematic for them before that could have led to this offense in the first place. And that was super helpful, because if they're trying to skirt the issue or get around some other, probation condition, that's not a good sign. Because they're being impulsive or they have bad decision making, and those are all things we can address in treatment. So anyway, that's getting to the specifics of one little area.
Of everything.
Yeah. So when you talk to audiences, what do you like to lay down as kind of the polygraph examination 101 facts?
Well, the first thing, I'm going to go into my handy dandy desk over here. For clarification, this is the polygraph. It is
okay.
This is what a polygraph actually is. It attaches to my computer, and I run the exam off of my computer. But realistically, I don't know how close I can shove this into the screen, but we have here the different sensors and the different recording options that we have to acquire the data. This is what's being used right now. Previously, what you may have seen in like the Vanity Fair shoots or anything online, you have that old gold box with the rolling paper. That is a polygraph, because of the word polygraph itself, poly meaning many, graph meaning readings. So we're able to, with technological advances, record more data. Gold box the rolling paper measures your breathing, your heart rate, your sweat gland activity. This guy gives me 2 breathing components, your blood pressure, sweat gland activity, a butt sensor, which is letting the examinee is trying to move around in the chair, or
the butt pad. Yeah.
Bingo, the butt pad. The butt pad picks up everything. That's all I'm going to say. I see it all.
Oh, God.
Also included in here are connectors, which I can attach to the physical chair, which are like different sensors. So I know if an individual is moving around and trying to do physical countermeasures. But again, with technological advances, I have the opportunity to acquire more data. The other thing that I would say, going back to what you had mentioned earlier about seeing your examinees or your clients kind of freaking out about taking a test, and Dr. Shiloh, you taking them yourselves in the pre-employment realm, I tell everyone that if you walk into my office and you are not nervous and you are not anxious, something is wrong with you. Because obviously we know a guilty person doesn't want to take the test because they're afraid they're going to get caught. That's it. It's a simple crapshoot. However, the innocent person is going to be anxious and nervous because they know they're innocent. They know they are not guilty of whatever they're being accused of, whether it's infidelity, whether it's molestation, whether you stole office supplies, whether you jaywalked and got a ticket, doesn't matter. They're going to be anxious and nervous because they're unsure if I'm qualified on going ahead and being able to render a decision about their innocence. So everyone's going to shit the bed for some sort of a reason. It's just, am I qualified to do my job, or am I overqualified and I'm going to find you guilty?
Well, and that's so, I don't know, just kind of comforting to hear that that is absolutely some part of your knowledge, like something you consider is that there's really only two ways you're coming in here.
Yeah.
And even if it's the innocent person who's fearful of exactly what you said, you know, just that, is this person good enough to be able to tell that I'm innocent? That's wonderful to know that that is on your mind going into it. What else do you kind of say up front? How do you, I'm sure everyone's style is a little bit different, but how do you like your demeanor to be and to put someone at ease or not put someone at ease? I don't know.
So I always take the interpretation of, I want to be treated. I wanted my examinees to feel the same way that I would want to be treated if I was sitting in the chair. Now, I'm going to have individuals that are going to be hostile, that are going to be aggressive, that are going to have an issue, like with my age. So when I first started my job, when I was 23, 22, 23, at that point, I had platinum blonde hair and I was 23 years old. So imagine some individuals walking into my office, and I'm not going to play any gender roles, but hint, hint, wink, wink, Dr. Scott. I'd have certain men walk into my room, not saying you, but I'd have certain men walk into my room and make comments pertaining to my looks, of how I looked and my age and whether or not I was actually qualified. I've been told that I have pairs of shoes older than me. The belt that I'm using right now is older than you. That became an issue. And I haven't really heard that BS in a long time, because obviously I have grown up and aged. But it comes down to continuing education and making sure that I'm constantly receiving the training that I do, and enhancing my credentials to separate myself from physical appearance or age. So that's kind of like the biggest thing that I've dealt with. But with regards to setting rapport, for some reason, female examinees are my favorite. I had one yesterday that came in like a full pink attire. We were comparing nail polish colors. So like, if something is setting the rapport under those terms, that was nice and easy. Having a gentleman coming in wearing a basketball jersey and I can like make a comment about his sports apparel or teams. It's just really just having some sort of knowledge base and being able to have access and just fly off the seat and pretty much have a conversation about anything and everything.
Yeah. So the rapport building is a huge part of this, and I'm sure you just kind of let it take as long as it needs to take.
Oh yeah. I could book exams for like an hour and a half period, and then I look at my watch and I'm like, oh, you've been here 3 hours because we're too busy having a conversation. But at that point,
but what a great tool, regardless of what their status is, for lowering the baseline. That's a great quality for you to have that probably is missing in a lot of examiners, I would think.
It's a very common issue. So sitting on the board of the APA, my direct responsibilities are communications and public relations coordinator. But because of my position with the association, I've got my hands in a lot of different cookie pots pertaining to membership, seminar planning, whatever it is. But lately I've been more aware of like the ethics and grievances. And as you guys know, with the medical field, there's always an ethics and grievance board where a complaint gets filed. And Then you have to go through the investigation and stuff like that. But the main thing that we're dealing with now is pretty much examiner rapport and behavior. How is the examiner conducting themselves? What type of language, body language, mannerisms, choice of oversharing information, undersharing information, and it's a common theme. And it comes down to accountability of the examiner as well. So it is an issue that we're currently handling and we're currently dealing with, but I don't want to go back into the classroom and start a behavior plan and working on goals and IEPs with full-grown adults, but we're starting to acknowledge that situation.
That's super interesting. You made me think of something else that I hadn't even considered before we started talking, but being someone who, started this, a dozen years ago or so, like you said, are there generational differences with kind of polygraph examiners of like your father's generation, perhaps, and sort of new folks with the new technology or with all of these considerations about your own behavior and rapport that you're starting to, well, maybe not starting to see, but just are noticing?
Yeah, I mean, I've been noticing it now for probably even since the beginning of my career. When I graduated from my Polygraph Academy, we had an annual seminar about like 6 weeks later. I was like, you know what? Graduated from school. I want to go to the continuing education seminar. I want to get a lay of the land, network with other examiners, things like that. And at that point, I had what I like to refer as the old timers. They were in there anywhere between their 60s to 80s as examiners.
Oh, wow.
And I got the whole, where's your father? You lost? Meanwhile, they didn't even know my father was an examiner. They were just using that as a reference. Like, do you have a parental permission slip to be here? And at that point, I just double birded everyone. And I was like, wrong person to ask that to.
I can't imagine that with you, Lisa. So weird.
No, definitely not.
I know.
Well, it's also disheartening that you're talking about this was 12 years ago?
Yeah.
That's no excuse. No. Everybody should have known better by 12 years ago.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
With respect. I'm so sorry you had to have that experience. It's awful.
But you know what? It's because the industry as a whole has always been labeled as the good old boys club. And
okay.
And because of the law enforcement component that went into it, where it is a tool that is used by law enforcement. And if you look at the ratio of female versus male officers, and especially with those that do get promoted into specialized units, that is why the industry has had a stigma. I will say the industry as a whole has taken a positive approach of being more inclusive pertaining to women. That's part of the reason why I ran for my seat on the board of directors. I kind of wanted to just take the dominoes and knock them down. And at that point, it definitely has become more inclusive. It's just a day-by-day thing. And not having to worry about what other people think.
Well, that brings up a question. Shiloh, can I jump in with a question? Can I go off for a second? Okay, yeah. So this is fascinating to me, and I don't know if you'll be able to have any data on this, but you gave a great example just a few minutes ago by talking about these examinees coming in when you were young, and it doesn't matter what your age is or what your hair color is. You're there. You're the professional. You're actually the one in charge. And that's something that we dealt with in our internship sitting with a lot of people that were dysregulated emotionally. They had, pedophilic disorders. They had a lot going on. Yeah. But it takes a special kind of disorder to walk into a situation to any potential authority figure and give them attitude in that way. So my question is, if you have any memory of this, did you notice a tendency of the men that were disrespectful to be more likely to fail their polygraphs?
Great question.
Yeah, holy crap, that's a good one. So with my training and education, I'm able to recognize when adults are coming in with undiagnosed issues. I have my degree, and I actually just lectured at the conference in Vegas for the National Polygraph Association. I did a 4-hour block on testing examinees, whether they're juveniles or adults with special needs. And I specifically broke it out into individuals with oppositional defiance disorder, OCD, ADHD, as well as just general OHI for hearing or visually impaired. but also testing individuals with autism, because apparently autism is the new disease that even as an adult, a lot more adults are now being diagnosed with it much later on in life.
Yeah, it fell through the cracks for many years for people. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the training that I had done just to go ahead and give the examiners that were there. And I would say there was maybe about 100 to 120 of them. But because I have that capability and that tool set as a former educator and as a polygraph examiner, I can merge both. So when I do have, whether they're male or female examinee, and they are coming in combative and they are feeling what I like to refer to as some type of way, and I can recognize that they're going to start stimming, they're going to have to start issues pertaining to too much cognitive overload, I'll break out the fidgets. I have fidget spinners, I have the poppers, I have a ton of stuff. And that way, just even a brain break. But again, because I have that experience as former special education teacher, if the examiners are not trained on how to handle situations, given the circumstances of dealing with a combative examinee, that's when the examination can go one of two ways. The examiner is going to become combative with the examinee, which is then we have those ethics and grievance concerns pertaining to behavioral context, or we have an examinee that just shuts down and doesn't want to take the test. But typically, I've always said, and this has been just, you can quote me on it, put it on a bumper sticker, t-shirt, I don't care. I don't fail you, you fail yourself.
Yeah.
Because I'm held accountable by using the computerized software. There is a scoring algorithm built into it. So if you show up and you're wearing a t-shirt that's, let's say, red, and I'm like, shit, I hate the color red, I can't fail you on the basis of wearing a red shirt because I have a scoring algorithm that holds me accountable to everything.
Yeah.
I love that example. Thank you. That's so concise. I love that.
Yeah, we have systems in place that will go ahead and prevent that. And then there are times where, like, I have an exam that I run and I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, this is the scoring decision I'm coming up with. Right. I'm about 85% confident in my decision. I don't want to go ahead and render that opinion to my client only being 85% confident. So then what I'll do is I will call either my father, who's an examiner, I'll call another examiner and say, hey, do me a favor. I ran this test. I'm not giving you the relevant questions. I'm not giving you a backstory. I'm going to email you the charts and I need you to do a quality control, meaning I need you to go ahead and I need you to score these charts also, just so I feel secure in my scoring decision. And at that point, it doesn't matter what the relevant questions are because the physiological data is the data. Charts are charts. It could be about an infidelity. It could be about a murder. It could be about stealing something from the gas station. It doesn't matter. It's your tracings of the charts.
So I got a great question from our participants that I want to read to you. Emily is asking, what are less experienced examiners considering combative? Is that not being able to follow directions, not understanding questions, not processing the questions quickly enough? Because clearly not all examiners have your breadth and depth of experience and education. You're clearly like, you're the cream of the crop when it comes out. Yeah.
Well, maybe so just start with like, what do you say? What is combative? Yeah.
So combative is open to interpretation because, again, combative is an emotion and everyone feels emotions and thought processes different. So what I may see as combative, someone else may not see combative. There are times I've spoken to other female examiners and combative to them is the examinee getting physical. Get like the hand clenching, the body language, things like that. Combative can also mean tone of voice. How much louder do they feel like speaking? Are they raising their voice? Are they screaming? Combative also can just feel physically threatened by an examinee's presence. So there are different levels of it. It really is open to interpretation.
Yeah, I think it would be quite similar, Scott, to you and I. I will probably use a little different language, but just how someone is coming in to a room, you know, in the type of work that we did, nobody wants to be there. So it's not as if they're like, hey, great, I'm here for my therapy session. It's a condition of their parole, and they're not always cooperative. But yeah, it's generally affect. You know, we talk about affect a lot, their language, and then their behavior. And wow, it runs the gamut. But like you said, acting some sort of way. Yeah. It's like sometimes it's hard to even put words to it. It's a feeling, it's a vibe in the room. sometimes that
Well, but you and I, Shiloh, you and I have the advantage in our work that when we're writing up a report, we can use terms like client was superficially cooperative, client answered questions, but with a tone of hostility. So we can give descriptors.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love how you're explaining how clean the algorithm is in your device. But do you get the opportunity to present a report that gives whoever is reading that an idea of how the person walked in to the room that day?
So when it comes down to testing for infidelity, relationship, boyfriend, girlfriend, he, she, appointments, I typically don't go into that situation when it comes down to the veracity of it. It's more just the testable issue. Things like that. I'll discuss. That's a conversation I will have offline and not put on paper with counsel, in addition to prosecutors, immigration attorneys.
And us in London with drinks, right?
Absolutely. Can I just say, on a side note, I'm so incredibly happy that you guys are coming to London. Like, you have no idea how incredible it's going to be.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Oh, that's incredible. I'm so. You know what, Scott? Maybe I'll bring this and we'll hang out.
Oh, ooh.
I love that there's no fear whatsoever. But anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, I don't like to put that type of stuff in the reports only because I don't want it to skew the possibility of someone interpreting the results differently, even though they are concrete. I don't want it to say, hey, the individual was hostile, aggressive, verbally loud, or I don't want any negative connotations to take away or especially further a conversation if the individual failed. So I like to have all of those emotion-based conversations offline. That way it eliminates any further discussion. That the results are the results.
Nice. What else, and just like Polygraph 101, should we know about the ins and outs or how you run your examination before we move on to myths about polygraphs?
Well, I think the perfect segue probably into myths is that you can't beat the test. I mean, that's a perfect transition from Polygraph 101 stemming into myths. If I'm jumping ahead, I apologize.
No, not at all.
I figured that would probably be a segue, but yeah, no, you can't beat the test. You can.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, as simple as you can beat the examiner, but you cannot beat the test.
Explain that further. Now that you said it, I'm like, tell me more.
Like, oh, tell me more. Exactly. So what happens here is, I mentioned, you have the computerized scoring algorithm. You have everything from hand scoring. You also have the global approach where the examiner can score the interview, verbal responses, and then also go ahead and score the actual chart. So that's just global from start to finish. But we have the algorithm. And again, it's an accountability system. If you have an examiner that is not up to date with their continuing education, is possibly operating with equipment with less sensors than they should have, if they're going ahead and they're not up to date on how to use the algorithm or different scoring techniques, because it's not like we all just score one way and that's it. There's different variations of scoring styles. So if examiners don't have that information in their toolbox, they don't have something to refer to.
Got it.
Whereas the box is the box.
Yeah.
You try to change your physiological reactions, the butt squeeze, the holding your breath, taking deep breaths. Number one, I'm going to see it. And number two, those are things you cannot control. It's the autonomic nervous system. So if it doesn't look normal and I see that on the chart, we're going to have a conversation.
Got it. So that rings true to basically what every examiner I've worked with has said of basically it's the examination is as good as the examiner. So if you have a substandard person or someone who's not holding up to the guidelines and the current practices, then of course, there's that risk that they're not on their game to be able to determine the outcome or what have you. Okay. Before we switch into maybe a couple more myths or just talking about quote unquote beating the test.
Yeah.
So Shannon, one of our dearest listeners, says, consuming true crime content has made me determined to never accept a polygraph test. Can you comment on that, Lisa? And she says that in the most non-combative way possible.
Hi, Shannon. Okay, so this is my personal opinion, not my professional opinion. If you didn't do anything wrong, there's no reason for you not to take the test. Because you're there to prove your innocence. And again, it does come down to having the trust and the faith in the examiner itself. But at the same time, you need to go in there clear conscience. Obviously, if you know you did nothing wrong, there's no reason why you shouldn't take the test. Because again, I see it from this aspect of if you refuse to take the test, you have something to hide. But again, there is the fear of the inadequate examiner. So you do need to go in strong-willed, strong-minded, advocate for yourself if you do need to take a test ever, and state that I'm here at my own volition. I'm doing this voluntarily. I have nothing to hide, and I'm going to cooperate with your process. And that's
I think we can say that about any player in the criminal justice system, right? Like whether it's an attorney, and you know, I still have clients to this day that get attorneys for various things, even working in police psychology. A lot of the time it's like workers' comp stuff, but
oh God, my favorite.
but were they, you know, if you don't have confidence in your attorney, that can just break you. You know, not only are you going through this system, but you feel like, oh shit, this is not going to go well. That can really crush someone. But all that to say, like any person within this realm, whatever their profession is, again, we're talking about like their competency to be able to do their job.
And it's about doing research. I mean, my company advertises on Google, and I have people that go ahead and call me, and they'll speak to either me or like one of my staff members to book an appointment, and then they'll call someone else. Like just on the conversation alone and how the interaction happened, they've chosen to go with our firm. I've had clients that have gone ahead and taken exams with other examiners, and the next thing you know, they call me and they're like, hey, so here's the deal. Took an exam with so-and-so. This is what happened. And then of course I put them on mute and I'm screaming and they can't hear me because I'm listening to what transpired during the exam.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's kind of horrible. And I tell them like, listen, come take another exam. Like I know you're coming in already feeling some type of way about the whole process and everything else, but I promise you, you're not going to get the same experience. But again, it comes down to just examiner rapport, how they choose to handle themselves. But Shannon, take if you didn't do anything wrong, take the test.
All right, Shannon, there's your answer. So what's the most common way that people try to beat the test that you see?
Most common that I'd like to see. So there's 3 different ways that you can attempt to beat the exam. And these are referred to as countermeasures. Number 1, there's physical. That's clenching your butt. That's putting the tack in your shoe. It's the typical, I think it's Ocean's 11. I still haven't seen the movie. So when people make the reference, I'm like, yeah, sure. No problem. No clue. There is the clenching of the butt. There's holding your breath. There is taking deep breaths. So those are examples of physical countermeasures. And again, it's the autonomic nervous system, things you're trying to control that you have no control over.
Yeah.
And then the other one is mental countermeasures, counting from 0 to 100, but alternating numbers or factors, or there's so much other, counting sheep, falling asleep. That's my favorite. When someone tries thinking that they're going to fall asleep, and I'm like, don't do it. Like, just like, you're only going to piss me off. And for those people that do know me, they know, just don't poke the bear. I'm very much like a pit bull with lipstick. Like, just don't get to that part. She can like feeding her after midnight and she's a gremlin. Just don't do it.
I'm trying to picture someone so nervous and strung out with anxiety that they're also trying to fall asleep.
Yeah. I mean, I've had people cry after polygraph exams, and I'm like, the test is over.
Oh, I'm sure.
But here's the kicker of why they're crying, and it's usually women. And it's kind of like, no one has spoken to me this calm and relaxed before. I didn't think I'd be comfortable. And I had one woman hysterical cry after the exam, like ugly, probably one of the ugliest cries I've ever seen. And I'm like, why are you crying? And she goes, I'm going home now after being accused of cheating on my husband. You haven't given me the results, but I know that I have passed. I know that I didn't sleep with X, Y, and Z. And I now have to go home to, I think she said 5 children under the age of 4.
Oh,
shit.
Poor woman.
Oh my
Just
God.
that alone.
Yeah. So what was my first question to her? I said, what type of car do you drive? She goes, I drive a minivan. And I was like, yes, go you. I love that for you, but not for me. And I said, do you have any DVDs in the car? And she's like, yeah, I've got like some stupid. I said, go. I said, you're technically, your appointment's like done 20 minutes early. I said, it's going to take you about a half hour to get home. I said, go park your car in a random parking lot, go get some snacks and sit in the back seat of your Toyota Sienna and watch a movie and just unwind before you get home. I said, because you're going to want to go.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, you're going to want to go home and kill him because you did not do anything wrong and you just had to take a test. And B, I don't want you back here for an accusation of murder. So I'm like, I want you to take the time to just go home, chill out, do what you need to do, and just approach the situation after.
Emily says, when the hell would she have time to cheat?
Exactly. Exactly. Hey, but Lisa, I love that example. So how would a referral like you just described even come to you? So would it have been like they're at the edge of legal reasons, or they've been, that couple has been arguing so much that the husband says, you're going to go take a freaking exam because I know you're shipping the milkman or whatever. Like how do people even get to that?
It's pretty, I mean, because I advertise on Google, you just Google the company and it's anyone having a fight. So like my favorite, and my favorite, like, and I'm being sarcastic, is like a couple goes out on a Friday night and they come home at like 2 a.m. Saturday morning and they start fighting with each other. But like, you're this and you slept with that one and you're scaring this one. Then they call my office at 2 o'clock in the morning and they start leaving voicemails that they want to book a polygraph for the next day.
Oh
and
my
I'm
God.
Like, but it's the genuine immediate reaction of let's go take a lie detector test. And the reason for that is because it's become so mainstream in the media. We have daytime TV shows that are dedicated to conflict resolution by using polygraph, but some people see it for entertainment purposes, like, oh, they're just on the show. But another thing that I lecture on pertaining to just the polygraph industry as a whole is the relationship of the media and the polygraph, and how people are going on these talk shows for A, conflict resolution, but B, for answers. Polygraph exams are not cheap exams. If you're having difficulty putting food on the table, you're not going to have the money to pay for an exam. Whereas if you do attend one of these nationally syndicated TV shows, you can go ahead and get the therapy you need by meeting with specialists. You have a referral for services when you do come home, plus you have a polygraph exam administered to you, and you have the answers. So
you just have to do it on television.
That's the only downfall. If we can get you all of those services and the resolutions within 48 hours, it's going to take you years to do that at home.
Yeah. Wow. It boggles my mind that she's like, I had to come here and take this test. Like, no, you didn't, lady. Like,
well, thank you.
You know?
Yeah, we could go on and on about that.
Oh.
Like that having to go home to five kids under 4. What was
it was like, I think it was 4 kids under 5.
Oh, no. Jeez.
I'm joking, but yeah.
What has been like the craziest way that someone's tried to beat the test? Aside from sleeping, that's pretty crazy, but like,
I would say chemical.
Like benzos, like benzodiazepines or tranquilizers, or
so benzos are the worst thing for someone to take, obviously, unprescribed, because people just take them and they eat them like Pez. You don't know what they're doing. Whereas for a chemical countermeasure, during the pre-test interview, I'll go ahead and I'll ask any diagnosed medical conditions, because especially if you do have something and it's reflective in the chart, I want to make sure that what I'm looking at is genuine, separate from the medical condition, especially on the cardiac tracings, but also with the skin responses and thyroid issues. And then I ask also medications. What are you currently prescribed? When was the last time you had taken anything? And if you're going to tell me, oh, I'm not on prescription meds, but you're flatlining on your skin responses, you have one or two options. Tell me what's in your system and I can work with you. Or here's a 16-panel drug test. Go pee in a cup.
Wow, cool.
Okay.
Because I want.
So that would that drug test also pick up like prescription meds that weren't benzos, but like metoprolol or blood pressure medications?
That's gonna give me. Where are my drug tests? Okay, there. Hold on one second.
Hold, please. Hold music. Dun, 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 dun,
Nothing like having drug tests in my house. So this is going to give me amphetamines, barbiturates, benzos, cocaine, methamphetamines, morphine, oxy, THC, alcohol, And there's 3 other classifications that I'm drawing a blank on right now. But yeah,
The good stuff, basically.
yeah, pretty
That's
much.
a party right there. That urine is a party.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not going to pick up anything like metoprolol, which is considered to be the beta blocker.
Right.
I will see that. I want to know like the farm parties type of stuff, because that's more indicative and more affecting. Whereas if you're going to take a beta blocker, not many people are smart enough to take a beta blocker prior to an exam. They're more likely to hit the farm party.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'll just say, listen, take a drug test. If you're genuinely telling me there's nothing in your system, pee in a cup. And if you pee in a cup and you fail, you automatically fail the polygraph because you didn't disclose it to me during the pre-test interview and you're not prescribed it. Therefore, it's a chemical countermeasure. But if you're negative, then I know that that's your baseline.
Okay, so next question. I have like a tiny minor tachycardia thing it's benign. It's not a big deal. It's just like a thing. It's a blip in my heart rate and blood pressure that lasts a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And I tell you that. Is there a way that even if I tell the examiner could it be misinterpreted? Or does that depend on the education and experience level of the examiner? Like you would be able to know that. I've told you to look out for it. Could somebody with less experience get confused?
As long as it's disclosed and the examiner is trained on what to look for, there shouldn't be any issues.
Okay.
In the fact that there is a disclosure, I know that the TACAC and the AFib is going to be present. So I know what I'm looking at. And I can just go ahead and during the test, we have like little keystrokes that we can hit to go ahead and what's the word I'm looking for?
Filter? Would it filter it out?
It's almost like notating where we can just make a notation on the chart electronically.
Got it.
Artifact. There we go. We can artifact the chart for what we're visually seeing.
Oh. Huh. So how much during the examination, I know you said like the machine's doing the work.
Yeah.
And this is sort of similar to the question that Scott asked about like documentation and articulating how the person came in, but how much are you paying attention to what's going on in the room that you as a human being are observing and sort of noting body language, basically whatever's not on the machine itself?
Well, I start scoring them as soon as they walk through my door. Before they're even in the polygraph suite, I open the door and I don't want to say start passing judgment, but I want to get an idea on the person before they even come into my suite. Mm-hmm. So they'll walk in the door. Hey, how are you? Blah, blah, blah. Can I get you a glass of water? Do you need the restroom beforehand? Like, and just talk them through. Like, so what's going on? Like, how was your day? How was travel? Things like that. And I start getting a read on body language and mannerisms and where they're at with their level of comfortability of being in my office. And then from there, I'll transition them into the polygraph suite, and then I'll make a mental notation and compare the two. Did their disposition change when they entered the polygraph suite, or did it remain the same? And then from there, it's just going ahead and keeping an eye out for body language, microexpressions, hesitation in answering, delays in answering, how the choice of even vocabulary. Because the choice of words, like even separate from a polygraph, the words that you choose to use to explain a situation and or choose to communicate with is indicative of many things. Higher level of education, in addition to life experience, as well as the with or without descriptive language. So I like to call it a colonoscopy and an endoscopy at the same time, but without the propofol. I'm sorry for those that prefer it with it, but it's like I said, it's a global approach.
Well, and Polygraph Suite sounds romantic and like the best room at the hotel.
The bed is not in the shape of a heart, and there's no giant martini jacuzzi bubble wrap.
No? Oh, that's so weird.
No, if that was the case, I'd be bringing my boyfriend to work every day, and he's not, so.
Well, I mean, you do, this is tough work, and we talk about vicarious trauma throughout every single profession in the criminal justice system. What do you find is sort of the toughest part about this job when it speaks to talking to people who have perpetrated or have been victims of crime and trauma And then my second half of the question is, how do you take care of yourself, being aware of all that?
It is, when I first started off coming out of the classroom, at one point I was teaching during the day and doing polygraphs nights and weekends. There was my final year teaching. I had been teaching and it was spring break. And then I got a phone call to go to Amsterdam to go run polygraph exams out there. So that's how I spent my spring break. And then I came back to school and I said, shit, I don't really like kids anymore. Like Amsterdam was great. Polygraphs are awesome. So I left one profession for another. But after working with kids for so many years and growing up around kids, I've got a huge family. Those are probably the hardest issues to test when dealing with individuals that are being accused of it and just hearing the graphic nature of the allegation. So it's a lot for me to take on. I also know if they're failing right in front of me. So it's also the internal battle that I have of trying not to reach across the desk and choke someone out. And it's a give and a take. I mean, I'll be honest, there are times where I ran a chart on an examinee and I see that they're failing. And I've said to myself, okay, I need a brain break. I need a body. So, and they usually get anywhere from like 3 to 5 minutes in between the charts to kind of just woosah and namaste. So I'll walk out of the room and I'll be like, okay, I need a glass of water. I need to use the restroom just to remove myself from that environment so I can recalibrate myself and then go in there back with a clear head and say, listen, it was only one chart. Given the benefit of the doubt, don't jump to conclusions. But again, data is data. And then I would run the rest of the series of exams. But it's very difficult to hear certain things and come home at the end of the day. I mean, at one point, I've tested a lot of high profile individuals pertaining to certain things. And I've heard some stuff that I should probably have never heard of or know. And even to this day, and this is probably about 2 years ago, it still holds a heavy place in my head and my heart. But it comes down to just talking through it with other examiners. It comes down to, I know some examiners, they deal strictly with PSOT. And that gets a little difficult, as you both know, where some of them are even going to therapy on their own. Because in our situation, and as you guys know, we hear some pretty heavy, dirty, graphic, deep stuff.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I'm not turning to drugs and alcohol at the end of the day. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of alcohol, but it's just more so, how do we process when we hear the trauma? We almost become victims ourselves because we have to endure what the victim has gone through. I know for me, I have a preference of not polygraph testing victims because of re-victimization. Yeah. But at the same time, we do have offenders that don't want to consent to taking the exam because they don't want to get caught. So the victim sometimes will step up and take the exam. My personal preference is I don't like doing that. There are some examiners that will do it. If I have to do it, I will do it. But I don't want to cause that additional trauma to them.
Yeah, well, and you know, that's a whole mindset in and of itself, feeling like you're causing additional trauma, right? And I'm sure a number of people all along the line of a prosecution through the system can feel that way. Yeah. But even if it's after the fact, you know, I totally empathize with what you're saying. That's why, you know, I worked with offenders and I didn't work with victims. And there's wonderful, special people out there that can do it and do it well. And there's someone for everything.